The TCC stands for Travelers Century Club. And just like the Circumnavigators has a membership requirement, TCC also has a membership requirement, and that is that you must document that you have traveled to and set foot on at least 100 countries. That's hence the term century. And you get a pin to that effect. And if you get to 125, you get a better looking pin. And when you get to 150, it gets better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And eventually you get to what Don here has. He's got the virtual globe that rotates. Solar powered, you know. So it gets better. Okay. What is your count? 330? Yeah, that's the maximum number, right? Currently.
Are there any entities that are like volcanoes that are floating under the sea?
Yeah, from time to time, they do add and unfortunately subtract countries from the list. But currently, Don has. Right.
So the board, so for example, in 2015, there were 225. That's when I finished the list, and they've added 5 in 5 years.
Yes.
But it's pretty stable.
In the last 5 years, they've added 5 unique countries, and they do that in January. They have a committee that goes through the rules. And the definition of country is a little bit odd. It's not a UN country per se. That's one way you could define it. It's they've got their own unique definition. So, for example, Hawaii counts as a separate country because it's geographically separated. It has its own distinct culture and a few other things. So you got to get a sense for it. And as you might suspect, it's a group of travelers. People like to travel. They like to go to the more interesting places, perhaps, that are sometimes not on the typical flight path of normal trips. And as far as I'm concerned, they have just one hell of an annual meeting. But the last one was in Malta. Okay, and they've got a series of programs and what have you. And then we have a vote for where it's going to be next year. And the candidates, if you will, are selected from, if I got this right, the people who went to Malta made suggestions as to where we would go next year. So if you want to get your favorite place on the list, the best thing to do is go to the next annual meeting.
Where's next year's meeting?
The voting has just started. There are 4 candidates, right? 5? I forget. Yeah. Sorry. All right.
Thanks, Jim. Who here is not familiar with the Circumnavigators Club? Oh, good. I'll talk a little bit about that for just a moment. So the Circumnavigators Club is the club that's dedicated, or that is for people who have been all the way around the world that have circumnavigated. It was founded in 1902. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, right? We are headquartered in New York. We have chapters around the world. We're an international organization. And historically, we've had some interesting members like Houdini, and also John Philip Sousa are a couple of our more famous historical figures that have been members of the club. Just a couple other things about the club. Our motto is, through friendship, to leave this world a little better than we found it. So we're all about making the world a better place. We do award the Magellan Award nearly every year to an individual who has really helped make the world more understandable in a big way. So for example, our last Magellan Award winner was filmmaker Ken Burns. And we've had several prominent people through the years. Our foundation sponsors university students to go on a circumnavigation and study something that is closely related to their education, and then they come back and present that to us as well. So that's something else that we're involved in. Deanna, you're here. So I won't ask you to do this now, but maybe during dessert, just a quick update on our scholars. Oh, thank you. Okay, I sprung that on her, so appreciate that. Okay, now I think they're going to be serving dinner soon, so please enjoy dinner and conversation. Oh yeah, I'm well. I'm well. If I can have your attention for just a minute while you're enjoying dessert, just a couple of quick announcements. I just want to mention to watch your email inbox for invitations to our upcoming events. And yeah, we're planning a fundraiser in October, and then, sorry, and then our December event. But Deanna is, let me just say something about Deanna. She is in charge of our foundation grantees, the grantee program for Chicago, and she has been holding the hands of our Circumnavigator students for this past 3 months, in contact with them daily while they're circumnavigating the globe and helping solve problems and everything. So we want to thank Deanna for that. Thank you, Deanna.
It was only daily when issues came up, but and they were either across, in Kuala Lumpur, 12-hour time difference. So that kind of added a little fun to the talking. So I can't see, so I got to put my glasses on. Okay. Certainly. So I just want to give some highlights. Mackenzie returned about September 5th, and then she turned around and left September 9th to start her master's program in Germany. So she was here back in the States for a very short amount of time. So she was our scholar from, this is 2020, 21, 22, from 2021. So she had postponed her trip because of COVID. So she finally got to do it. So we had 2 scholars that traveled this summer. How many people, well, I guess I should take a step by it. How many people do not know about the scholarship program? Okay. So every year, the Circumnavigators Club sends 2 students around the world. The Chicago chapter is very fortunate that we get to sponsor one of those students, and that one of those students from Northwestern. So their goal is they pick they choose a travel study. They propose a travel study We meet with them, we hear their proposals, we make a selection. Generally, it's about 10 people apply because the application is not fill out a piece of paper. It's about a 50-page application. So it's very intense just to apply, not to get, but just to apply. So we have about, I think we had 9 applications. Northwestern whittles it down to 3 with an alternate, so 4. So their top 4 applications. And then we have a selection committee that meets and we interview them and we choose a scholar. And that scholar we send to circumnavigate the globe. They must visit 5 countries, 3 continents, and do it in 10 weeks. So it's a pretty quick trip, but it's also very, and do their study program. So because of COVID, we haven't had any scholars go through for the last 2 years. And so this was my first year actually helping a scholar go from the beginning to the end. I got to have 2. So that was fun. I don't know, what are they calling this summer about travel? Travel from fun? No, it's been a very tough travel system, a very tough travel season, even for seasoned travelers. So it's been a lot of flight delays, canceled flights, trying to rebook things on the weekend when the travel agent that you booked it through doesn't work, or they're in a different country on a different time frame. So it's been a lot of hand-holding because of that, and trying to problem solve and create and come up with alternative avenues aside from just writing them a check, because that's the other thing. Part of this scholarship is we give them $9,500 to do this on. How many people here in this room could travel for 10 weeks on $9,500? Including the plane, including the food, including the airfare. I mean, it's a very, very, it's a very tight budget. They can do it and they make it, but it's a very tight budget. So I know I'm running out of time. So Mackenzie is in Germany. Vivica is back. she's working full time, and I'm meeting with her tomorrow, so I can have more of an update later on her. Mandy was our scholarship who she's fabulous. Many of you know her from Circumnavigators. She had her baby, which we sent out for baby Davis. So that's exciting. Unfortunately, Mandy she was our first COVID victim, and she never was able to complete her travel. Janine mentioned the international, where our fundraiser is going to be October 29th. It's the International Fashion Show fundraiser. So we'll have more coming out to Circumnavigators for that. So that's just a little teaser. And then also, so for the selection committee, we're trying to get more people involved with the scholarship and be part of it, so they know more about it and are more enthusiastic with it. So the biggest part is doing the scholar selection, being part of that committee. We have 5 people that interview and make the selection. It's really a one-night commitment for that. And if you'd like to be considered for the committee, if you could email me by October 15th, and then we'll go from there, because I know there's several people who are interested. So I don't want to and they've already come up to me, but I want to put it out to everybody. If you are interested, just get an email to me by October 15th. And then we'll announce the new selection committee at the fundraiser on October 29th. Don't mean to take your time. Sorry.
Thank you, Deanna. Okay, now for our main event. So just a couple words about our own Virginia Mullin. She is a member of both the Chicago Circumnavigators Club as well as the Travelers Century Club. And I know you've probably all read her bio, but for those of you that didn't see it, just a couple of highlights. So she's visited 108 countries and all 7 continents. She holds a doctorate in psychology, specializing in behavioral medicine. Her first international travel experience was spending a summer attending a language program at Goethe Institut in Germany. Did I pronounce that correctly? Goethe, thank you. Her professional contributions include conducting research at a hospital in South Africa and a 3-year consulting contract with Assumption University in Bangkok, mentoring students and serving on committees. She has published her work in several professional journals on cross-cultural medicine, and she's written about her travels in American Express publications and others. She's won awards in amateur photography, which will be the recipient of today, and currently enjoys presenting travelogues. And also, Virginia actually presented to us during a Zoom meeting during the pandemic on her travel to Ethiopia, along with Jim Franch. So anyway, we're really happy to have her tonight. One more thing, please hold your questions until the end. And we do know that some of you are here by train and bus and other things. So if you do need to leave before, if we go over, we do understand. Okay, Virginia.
I'll be standing at an angle here. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Janine. And I'm very happy to be here with everybody. I'd like to know who would like to join me on a gorilla trek tonight. Good. Okay. I would like you to, oh, more volume. Okay. Okay. Is that better? Okay. I have to speak directly into it. Sorry. So, yes, I'd like you to feel what it's like to go, because I'm explaining the different steps, and I'll talk about the gorilla trek itself, and then about the gorillas as they're in their animal world, and then I'd like to end with a little bit about Rwanda, because of course they're the host for all of this, and it's a very interesting place. And since we're travelers, I should be closer here. Since we're travelers, you do see the country when you go for an event or whatever. So, how many people here have been to Africa? Oh, great. Okay. And how many have been on a gorilla trek? Great. And Don? Yeah, good. You raised your hand? Don, you raised your hand? Yes. Oh, can you hear me? Yes. Oh, in the Congo. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, the lowland gorillas. So those are two topics we're going to talk about. Can you hear me better now? Good. Okay. So I brought my map, and I want to show you where Rwanda is. Africa, obviously, as you know, is huge, and Rwanda is a very small country. Who has been to Rwanda? And you've been, I should say, Don Parrish is the most traveled man in the world, or one of them in the world, I know. Yes, so I mean, he's amazing. He has really been to most exciting places. So I will take this with me, and thank you very much. I will show you, we'll move forward here. This is a friend of mine that I photographed, really cuddly. We'll see more about him later on. Oh, I'm sorry. This is my wonderful technical associate and in the safari outfit. Where? Oh, okay, good. Well, the map is over here, so I'm not sure. This is wireless. Sorry, I'll be moving around a bit. So obviously, here is Africa, and Rwanda is this little country here. It's that big in the whole scheme of things, and it's on the border of Uganda, which is much bigger, and it also borders. Here's Uganda, the green one, and it borders the Congo, which is very large. Rwanda has the largest number of mountain gorillas, but Uganda has quite a few as well. And right on the border, it's believed that the gorillas are related when they've crossed over. These are mountain gorillas, which are the largest ones. And Don mentioned seeing the lowland gorillas as well, which are a different species. The mountain gorillas are larger, their fur is darker. They're very strong, and there are more mountain gorillas than there are lowland gorillas. Now, I'm not sure exactly where the lowland gorillas are, but Don could tell afterwards if you want to say something, or maybe you want to tell us. Virungia. Okay. Oh, okay. So they're there, but they are different species, and the mountain gorillas do not do well in captivity. They're perfectly adapted to the wild, and they live in families. So when we go there, we'll see the structure of everything. So a Congo actually has the fewest of them. Although they do have some there, and I don't think their tourism for gorillas is well developed as some other countries. Would you say that, Don? Right. But
Every traveler should get a chance to see
any kind of gorilla. Right. Okay. Thank you. So here we go. You can come along with me, and we have. Oh gosh, the last time I did this, it was towards the slide actually. You can do it for me. Okay. Good. All right. So this was our greeting when we arrived in Rwanda, and it was they had a little concert for us, and we heard some of the music earlier with marimbas and so forth, and that's very typical. And so, and you see the surroundings in Rwanda, and how we got there was to fly from Nairobi, which has a very established airport, on Kenya Air, and it's about a 2-hour flight. And so we flew into the capital of Kigali, which is also interesting. But this was a very nice introduction and got us in a very good, a good mood to do a lot more. Okay. Good. And so this is the grounds of the resort that we stayed in, and the person walking across the little bridge there is my son-in-law, who took me on this trip as a surprise. And he and my daughter live in Nairobi and work in Nairobi right now, so he was familiar with this. But Rwanda is considered a very beautiful country, and you can see the variety of vegetation and growth. It's very green and very, very nice. It seemed very remote where we were because we weren't around a lot of people, but a lot of the activities were at a small main lodge, so we did get to meet people. Okay. And then here's more of the vegetation, as you see from this wooden bridge. Just really, really beautiful. And the country is kept up very nicely. I didn't know a lot about the government, but it is currently a dictatorship. But they get things done. They have a good infrastructure. They have good roads. I don't know lately if there are issues that are negative, but our experience was very, very positive there. And you can see the little berries and the flowers, fruits, and all of those things. Okay. Very good. Now, this is a little house that my son-in-law stayed and I stayed in, and it was remote. I mean, it was with the split rail fence. It had 2 bedrooms and very modern. And at night you could hear birds and various things. It was pretty isolated, except off to the left you can see a little bit of a gray structure back in the trees. But in general, we didn't see other people when we were walking back and forth to the lodge. Okay. So this was the main way that their transportation was provided, which of course is a safari vehicle. This we did get a ride to the lodge one day, but also we primarily walked. And my son-in-law was leading the way. I was about to follow to go to the lodge for the orientation for the gorilla trek. However, on the way was another concert, and these are local women, and it was a lot of fun. They were having fun too. And then there was another group that was really fun. Go ahead. It's not working. Okay, there. We have no idea what their hair was made of, but again, that's typical. So that was really fun. So we felt we had a good introduction to the country. We felt we had a good introduction to the country. And so now, here we are. We were driven to the base of this volcano, and a lot of the gorillas live in Volcanoes National Park. You can see how green it is and how nice. They also live in rainforests in this area and in other areas too around. And Uganda apparently has a similar national park that's really protected that is also a rainforest for their gorillas. There, and that's my son-in-law Tim with his walking stick. It's typical of how we all prepared for our hike to go up to see the gorilla family, and we were given wellies or special boots to wear because it was always damp there and the chance of mud and whatever. When we had the orientation the night before, we were asked which kind of group we'd want to be in. One was very, very adventuresome and was going pretty high. And this ours was considered kind of the, I guess, the usual one, but it still was quite a bit of walking. And for various reasons, it did take most of the day, which was fun. So we are getting ready to go. But in the orientation, we learned how to behave around the gorillas. And a lot of the rules were common sense. You don't yell at them. You don't use sudden aggressive movements around them, and you're very respectful to them. You don't wear red. That sounded interesting. I guess they don't like that too well. And my favorite, you do not look them directly in the eye, and you don't smile showing your teeth, because to them that's really aggressive. You know, many of the predatory animals show their teeth when they're looking for food. So you just have to watch yourself a little bit. So now we're ready to go. We did walk across the field to the base of this mountain, and we're in just the lower levels. But this is typical of how we walked. It definitely had some challenges. We walked basically on our fours up that ladder, and we met our guides down in the parking lot in the different groups we were put in, which was typically 8 people to a group. And sometimes there were 10, but it was more typically 8. And each group had 4 guides, who work for the National Park Service, and we had 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and they all carried rifles. And then it was our small little group going along, and they dressed very khaki clothes, very subtle colors and whatever. I can say more about them later because they're very interesting. Okay, so there we go. That's typical of a path in at least one of the forests we went through. It was all just very, very natural land. I took that one. I was behind her, but a very pretty, okay. And here I am with one of the guides. I'm on the left, and he was, just in case, but no, if you can see his smile is very, very friendly, and you can see the slope of the land. We did climb up very steep slopes too, where they could be slippery, and they were very, very helpful. And at times we had to climb down areas that were a little uneven like that and slippery too. But yeah, they were very, very pleasant. Okay. And there I am. And this was one straight down with the roots of the tree, and it was a little bit muddy, and the grass, I mean the dirt, is loose. So I was a little hesitant, and the guide was very intuitive. So he really helped me down. He took me by the hand, and then another one of the guides helped with the vine. And these are all natural vines. So it's really exotic. It was just a lot of fun. And here we are now, ending up in a dry stream bed with rocks, and so that was another walk, very uneven and a little bit rough on the feet. But the vegetation is continually changing, and it's just really interesting and a lot of fun. And now we're in a bamboo forest, And the gorillas love the bamboo forest, and they like to chew on some of the flowers, the bamboo flowers and so forth. So this was kind of fun to come across this. And we would stop and talk about things, and one of the guides did speak English, so he could explain. And you can see there are a lot more ferns and that type of growth there too. And this one felt very damp. We could feel that. Okay. Oh, keep going. Skip that one. Skip this one. Okay. Now, we were told that we had to watch out for what they call scat, because that meant we were getting close to the gorillas. So as we walked along, everyone saw that picture. I didn't want to keep it up too long. And someone said, "Oh my gosh, we're here, it's great." And the guide turned around and said, "Elephant." So that was so that was fun. We really had fun too. And the elephant had crossed the road earlier. And so we weren't too far away from that though. And what did we see but dark fur curled up in the brush? And I guess we were being watched. So we knew we had arrived at our gorilla family. And there's one. The families are very interesting. They're composed of 8 to 10 gorillas of different ages, and they are led by the large gorilla, in this case, the large gorilla that we saw at the beginning, who is a silverback. And each family basically has one silverback who's the largest and very strong, very powerful, and has tremendous leadership. He actually does amazing things with the group. And we'll see more of him later. But they were munching on things. They were doing their own thing, and we followed the rules of not startling them and respecting them. We were told to try to stay within 10 feet of the gorillas, and of course we weren't sure with the really large ones if we could do that. But typically that worked out well, although the younger ones were interested in us. So some of them came closer. They're very curious about us. And even in a zoo, if you look at a gorilla in a cage, they're looking at us too, about the same way. So they're really cute. Typically, the mothers have one baby gorilla at a time, although sometimes they're twins. Okay. Oh, this was a smart aleck. It was so funny. He was playing peekaboo. And we walked by and we saw the stick, and then he would pull the stick back. They're really funny. I mean, it seemed to be a really cute sense of humor. And it's a fairly large one, and you can see there's another one behind. They were sometimes in groups and sometimes single. Okay. And that's our silverback. And you don't fool with him too much because he is the alpha male of the entire family. There are, of course, youngsters who are male, but when they are about 12 years old and their hair starts to turn silver, they are chased out of the group to go form their own family groups. So he is the ruler and the king, and it's just amazing. He makes decisions for the group. They move around quite a bit, and he chooses where they're going for the day. They are foragers and vegetarians, and he knows where the different kinds of food are. So he will lead them, for example, to breakfast with one kind of food, and then further on for lunch, and he tries to vary it day by day so they don't get bored with food. He also plays with the little ones. He acts as a mentor, teaches. He can break up fights. It's really something, and they are intelligent. They're primates like us, but they're the largest primates. But they're very intelligent. Although the chimpanzees are considered the most intelligent because they can be trained. They're in circuses, and they were anyway. So there he is, and he is very, very strong. And he also decides where they're going to sleep at night, and he likes to take them to a variety of places. And the gorillas build their own nests and sleep in nests from whatever they find around. And he looks over them and really feels, I can't say how he feels, but he's very protective of the group. So, oh, there we are. We thought, we considered this as the little one's playground. Look at all the vines and how thick it is and what fun it is. And you do see them playing and swinging and climbing. The mothers are always watching, especially with the little ones. The mother gorillas are very much like the human mothers of watching over the babies and making sure they're okay. But it was so thick. It was really interesting and smelled really good, very fresh fall the vegetation. Okay. There's one climbing, just climbing. It looks like a stick, but he's going up, or maybe it's a vine. It looks like his hands are up at the top. So they were going just about whatever they wanted to do. Okay. There, isn't that cute? That's a little baby swinging. Ah, really fun. Yep, they really, it was very active in this family. Okay. Oh, and this fellow was quite interesting. He seemed very curious. I guess they are curious, but he found a plant with berries on it, and it looks like he's sniffing it. Okay. And then I don't know if that, I don't think that's the same one. But he was looking up, watching something. Isn't that an interesting face with the eyes? I mean, they look as though they have their own quote personalities, different types. Okay. And here's a group of the babies playing. You sometimes see them by themselves, sometimes in groups, and they were all just taking turns doing things. You can see the fingers of the one in the middle, and the others seem to be watching. Okay. And that's the youngest one, the tiniest one. And right behind, you see the mother leaning against a tree, but keeping a very close eye on that cute little furry baby gorilla. And here it's a huddle. These are the little ones, and they were doing something for fun or playing a game. It's just really such a surprise, and we were quite close to them. Sometimes they would look at us or come up closer, but in general, it was just a typical day for them. Oh, there again. I know. And I guess that's the bigger furry one to the right's probably Mama. I mean, they really do watch over them. Isn't that sweet? It's really cute. Okay. And there's one, one looking up again, probably at climbing. This looks like a couple to me. I don't know that the second gorilla was always following the bigger gorilla around. So that was fun. Okay. And here they're looking again, and just a little different part of this area. And there's an interesting one, an older one. And there is someone with its mouth open. And gorillas have their own language. They can communicate. They have about 25 different sounds, ranging from a howl to a growl to a groan and whatever. I think that was more of a howl. I'm not sure just what the purpose was. Okay. And there's our guide. He's enjoying watching us, watching the gorillas. You can see his gun. And it's a really good job to have. And the government is really interested in protecting the gorillas, and they have a lot of responsibility. Okay. There we're back at the guy with the plant and the berries. It looked like he was sniffing it, but he inspected, look at it, he was so interested in it. He was inspecting the whole thing and turning it one way and turning it the other way, and never did eat it. But that's, and maybe it was a new plant for him, but isn't it fun? And look at his fingers. Okay. And there he is again. And I don't know if it's the same plant, it's the same species. And it looks like he's sniffing again, but it's colorful and is really quite interested in it. You can see how thick the fur is on the hair, the fur of the mountain gorillas. Okay. Now this guy, he almost looks like he was beaten up or something, but he was just rolling around on his back and looking up and enjoying himself. So it was interesting to watch him. They like to look up at the sky, but of course, with all the vines, there's a lot of activity of climbing and that type of thing. Okay. Oh, I find feet of animals interesting. It was fun to see the bottom of the foot, and you can see the big toe is like a thumb, and they have 4 digits for other toes, but they climb using their feet as well, and the toe can grasp around whatever it is they want to do, and it really makes them expert climbers. Oh, thank you. The bottom of the foot. Well, I thought, well, that's really interesting. Okay. Yeah, isn't it the anatomy? Oh, and that's a silverback coming along, the one we saw at the beginning. And he would roam around. He was looking at us at this time, but we weren't afraid. And of course, we had the guards with us too. But he was just checking on everybody. So that was fun. Okay. Okay. And so those are the guards. They're looking a little bored right now. But you do see the rifles now. The reason they had rifles was not out of fear of the guerrillas getting out of hand or hurting people. It was more because of the problem they have had with poachers. And so sometimes they come across them doing things they shouldn't do. And, they're very, very well trained, very knowledgeable, and they actually sleep in the areas of the gorillas, and they're always tallying the numbers. There are quite a few they're national park people, and they're very trained. And so they can tell if there's something going on. They know their movements and where they're going, and I guess enjoy their jobs. So next. There's another one just relaxing, but they are getting ready to take us back down the mountain after this. And certainly there was so much learning about the gorillas. They're not only intelligent, but they're very much like us. And a geneticist that studied them claims that we share 98% of our genes with gorillas. They have emotions, and also they are susceptible to the same diseases as us. And they were very badly hit with both the Ebola virus and COVID. And I think about 20% of the wild mountain gorillas were affected with that. So there we are. That's another view. We're back down, and that's the terrain there. So the mountain gorillas are quite a success story, because in 1952 there were only 300 in the wild from what they could count. Today it's over 1,000, even with the epidemics and so forth that affected them as well. But they're really making an effort to protect them, and they realize how valuable they are. They're a wonderful animal, and very special. Okay. So now we were leaving the park, and this is typical of a woman in Rwanda and the type of clothes. And I guess, I don't know if that's a big banana plant, maybe Don knows, but it's something very tropical. And she's making baskets, which was nice. And there's a couple more colors, and they're very, very friendly. And so we were walking around the grounds, and then eventually we were around part of the land nearby. Okay. Now, the dictator of the government of Rwanda wants a clean country. And so he claimed one weekend a month, National Cleanup Day, when everybody gets out and picks up trash, and it really looks quite nice. And these little boys were out playing, but they all work, so they're picking up things and whatever. But this was cute with the three buddies. And the dictator has also done good things for the infrastructure, such as roads, and also increasing the level of education of the people in Rwanda. Isn't that cute? And here they are working, and those are three different boys, but they're out picking up sticks, and you see behind them it's cleared out. So that's their job on the national day, whatever. And but I assume that would be used for firewood or something that would be helpful in the home. But you just never know what you're going to see, and you do see a road winding in the back and the forest. Okay. Now we were driving along, and all of a sudden I saw this, the Diane Fossey Gorilla Fund International. And I asked our driver to stop because I wanted to see pictures of Diane Fossey and some of the history. So I went in, and there was a fellow in a uniform, and I asked where the photos of Diane Fossey were. And he just looked at me and said, "We don't have any of her here." He was kind of scary. So apparently it's very controversial. How many saw the movie The Gorillas in the Mist? That was a very sad but an interesting movie, but she was apparently murdered, and it could have been government, it could have been poachers, or any. I don't know if it was ever decided. So I was very disappointed in that, although I guess people do contribute to it. But I talked to someone who was there recently and said that they have now built a new memorial to Diane Fossey that's wonderful, and they do have a lot about her work, and it's they've kind of made up for some of the neglect that they've had. And of course, as we know, she lived with the gorillas and was so shocked. They became family members to her, and was so shocked by the poachers. And I remember some really shocking scenes where there were ashtrays being sold with the gorilla hands, and just very cruel. And then so she didn't last too long. But now they're very, very protected, and again, the park people are out living with them and whatnot. Now, the gorillas that we saw and the family that we saw is one that is not afraid of people. That they go about their own business, but it's one of 8 families in Rwanda that are chosen for tourists to see, because they know that the gorillas aren't going to cause problems, that they're very interesting in a variety of ages and so forth. So the country has purposely only chosen a few families, and they've left the rest. There are a lot of families there in the wild, although the park guards also monitor them and they sleep by them. But they are left that way so that they don't lose their life as a true wild animal. And they didn't want all the animals to be really used to be seeing humans, but they wanted to study them and see them as they live. But their diet, again, isn't too interesting. It's vegetables and one thing or another, and but sometimes they add snails and bugs. So they add a little protein too. The gorillas do have enemies, and in the animal world, they are crocodiles and leopards. However, the worst enemies of the the mountain gorillas are human beings. And part of the reason now is that, as we see in many countries in the developing world, people are taking land and encroaching on the habitats of the wildlife. And so the farmers have become very successful, and that's exactly what's happened, where they're farming very close to the habitats of the gorillas. And the gorillas, being vegetarian, see the produce, and they have huge appetites, so they can come into a field and just devastate all of the produce that the farmers are growing. And so the gorillas are actually endangered due to the the reaction of the farmers, who are losing their livelihood. So the government decided the gorillas were very important and the farmers too. So the government subsidizes the farmers that are living in the areas where the gorillas may raid some of their food. And also, they like the gorillas a lot. I mean, they are interesting, but it's one of the largest sources of income of Rwanda. My son-in-law told me that it's basically 500 million a year, which is hard to believe. Don is nodding, but so people from all over the world come to go on gorilla treks, and movies are filmed there. Just all sorts of things are coming in and out, and Rwanda is very friendly and helpful to anyone who wants to come there. Okay. Oh, here's that little, there's another one, the colors. Okay. And another one. I mean, this is so typical Africa, or even in some of the Caribbean. That looks like a sack of potatoes. The weight of it has to be hard, and she doesn't use hands. But I think the posture would be very good. You have to stand up straight. Oh, and there are more boys, and they're older boys, and they're carrying logs. It was just fun to drive along and suddenly see people working. Okay. Now, this gets into a very interesting incident that we had. And I'm sure I'm not a political scientist, but the political history of Rwanda is very controversial. And Rwanda was first occupied by Germany when the European countries got together and divided up Africa. It was a group from Berlin. And then later it was Belgium that took it over. And so when the Belgians got there, they were interested in the indigenous people, but also how the people could benefit them. So they looked at the two of the key groups, who were the Hutus and the Tutsis. You've probably heard about that. And the Hutus were by far the largest number, and the Tutsis were fewer numbers. But the Belgians decided, and the Hutus were also successful, very successful, but the Belgians decided to favor the Tutsis because they looked more European. And the Tutsis were smaller build, they had finer facial features, thin noses, and so forth. So they gave them very good positions at the expense of the Hutus. So of course the Hutus didn't like that at all, and they got together and rebelled, and at one time even had an army to go after the Tutsis to try to eliminate them. And it ended up as a genocide. I remember reading this. I mean, they wanted to kill all the Tutsis. They were so angry. And so they did. They decimated a really high percentage of the population. And now they all somewhat get along. Our driver was a Tutsi, and he very pleasant, and he talked quite a bit about the history. So he took us to an amazing exhibition area of a museum in Kigali, the capital, which was about genocide in general, and it really spelled out how ashamed the country was of what had happened. It was a true genocide, and it also covers the biggest genocide. These are all 20th century, which is the Holocaust. Very interesting, and things like Cambodia with Pol Pot, and it's shocking when you go through there and you realize in the 20th century all of the genocides that happened. You know, some were smaller than others, but the Rwanda one was really a very sad one. So I asked number one, our driver, I don't remember his name, if they could tell who the Tutsis are by looking at them. And he said, oh yes, they're much larger, their facial features are different, and so on. And I asked if they still have some friction. He said yes, but we're not fighting the way we were. So we were driving through Kigali, and our driver was planning to turn right, and all of a sudden, the man in the white shirt was the driver of the car next door, and he sped really fast to cut the car off. And so we were stuck in the middle of the road with this car blocking our way, and our driver said, he just sat like this, but he said, that man is a Hutu and he knows me. And so he was, they sometimes harass. And so we were just stuck, and we gathered a lot of onlookers. These were just people standing on the street. And my son-in-law and I were sitting in the back seat and looking up, and it wasn't all that scary. Nothing seemed very violent, but we couldn't go anywhere. And they were all very curious about us. And our driver and the Hutu fellow were having a conversation. And with whoever was talking, they would turn their heads all at once. And then the next person might talk, and they turned their heads the other way. And we were just sitting in the car, and we wondered what the end of this would be. But eventually, a policeman came along and just chased everybody away, and we went on our way. So that was the incident. I agree. I mean, it really wasn't. We weren't overly frightened, but it was very different. So there still is a lot of friction. And I wasn't sure of the year of all of this going, the war and things, Civil War, basically. It was at 1990 to 1994. That's really recent. I was very surprised. And I remember hearing of it when I was in school. And of course, they were in world affairs and so forth. It was really a big deal. But I think Rwanda is respected from what they're doing at this time, and they seem to be trying. The people were all very friendly and so forth. Okay. There. Oh, now you see the face of the Hutu man looking in, and they're much larger. They have different facial features, and our driver was quite slender, and again a thinner face and whatever. Okay. And that was the end of really the whole experience. And it was someone who was dancing. It's a combination of African, Native American, I think. But it was truly a wonderful, wonderful experience, and all the way around, meeting different kinds of people and seeing how they live, seeing the animals' habitat and so forth. And so I would recommend it if someone wants to go. And hopefully you've gotten a feeling for what it's like to be there, and how it is to go on the trek and what you see and so forth. We only spent a few days there, but it was enough to really relax and pick up the culture. And there are very nice restaurants for international tourists and that kind of thing. So I hope Rwanda continues on a really good path. So, okay. Gosh. Thank you. I do hope you could hear me through the microphone. And I'm happy to take questions if you have questions. There was no smell, which is interesting. I mean, the droppings that we saw in that one picture, we all avoided, but there was really no odor to them. And they have all that thick fur and whatever. Well, we're supposed to be within 10 feet, but very often it was closer than that. And again, sometimes the younger ones would want to come towards us. They were interested in us, and they were playing. And so probably they were maybe 5 feet away. Yes. Well, as you saw, sometimes we were on rocks, and it was considered moderately strenuous. It was not. The ones that chose to go up higher had a different experience, and they were exhausted when they came back down. But the main reason was that they were up in an altitude where there was more rain, and so they ended up getting very, very wet and muddy. And we saw them when we were all down in the field, and we really had the better experience. That was quite strenuous because it does get steeper as they go up. And the gorillas surprisingly do not like water. You know, they don't want to swim, and they may have hidden if the rain was coming out, and I don't know what they saw. But I mean, I'm not an athlete, but I could manage climbing. And the thing was, the steep areas where you saw the guides helping me, that really, when you look down and you can tell it's slippery and you have to grab onto vines, I was happy that they were there. But it was fun. no one was injured or whatever, so it's not a tremendously strenuous trip. Yeah.
Does the behavior of the gorillas change when they have interactions with humans? I was just wondering if they have like film footage of them just interacting without other humans around there, and how much different is it?
I don't know because I haven't seen films, but in general, they ignored us. I mean, the younger ones were kind of curious and came closer, but they all seemed to have something to do. It appeared that it was just typical of their behavior during the day, exploring and eating and that type of thing. Eh, Yes, I don't know why. Maybe it was, I looked at the long fur and I could tell there were little bits of foliage and things in them, but they didn't really do that. They didn't do that when we were there. And it's guaranteed with from when you go on a gorilla trek that you'll have at least an hour with the gorillas. And we were lucky because our group was constantly moving around and we had to walk farther to find them, but the guards just followed them and where they were going. And then we had more time with them as well, so we had a much longer trek. As far as how different they are, I'm not sure that they are different with each other, and they pretty much ignore us. But the ones that are really wild would probably react more, maybe be threatened. I don't know. They didn't say that, but if it's somebody new and you haven't seen the person, I don't know how they would react. Probably maybe curious, maybe feel alarmed, but I don't know. But they definitely were doing their own thing. They weren't tame animals. And that's why we were told not to make loud noises and to scare them and just, do things that were upsetting. Um, uh-huh.
From the gorillas,
Uh-huh.
and a medium-sized one comes running at me, pounding his chest.
Oh,
And then he stops, and the guy says, "Don't worry, he's just trying to scare you."
oh.
You tell him he did.
It sounds like it would be scary. And I read something about gorillas pounding their chest, and it said that there are a lot of different theories about it, but one is that it's to attract the lady gorillas with, strong. Yes. Mhm. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. So that's quite interesting. I mean, they love tourism, so they want people to see them, and certainly, the climbing and all those things are very accurate. Uh, so any comment what they might be like without that grooming? Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah. Yeah. They're really cute. Wasn't it an interesting trip? Yeah. And Uganda itself is interesting. It's very different from some of the other countries. A lot of films or movies made there too. Uh-huh. Okay, Don? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. You were pointing this way and I saw Don. We should go to, what is his name again? Or her name? Holly. Okay, Holly. It was never brought up. The average lifespan in the wild of a gorilla is can be up to 45 years. And if it's in captivity in a zoo or whatever, it's about 4 years. And there was no comment. I assume there could be some fighting over turf issues with the males, but that really wasn't brought up. I don't know. Don, do you know?
I wanted to underline some of your comments about the Holocaust.
Oh, okay.
That Reconciliation Museum in Rwanda is fantastic.
It really is.
And the reason it's so fantastic is it's very frank. They have a lot of footage when these two groups are confronting each other one-on-one, because the killing was done by people that knew each other. This is not random killing. So this is really people seriously trying to figure out how do we unscramble all that. The other thing that you touched on, I thought was quite good and also impressed me, is the cleanup.
Yeah.
And Paul Game, the president, got his cleanup days started.
Mhm.
Everybody pitched in, and you noticed, you could just see the cleanliness. And he was trying to get, a new cultural value.
And I think, I mean, with all the awful things that happened, there seem to be some really good things now. But there's still a little tension. I mean, it was such a severe issue with the Hutus and the Tutsis. There's still a little tension there, but I think it's kept under control.
The difference between these two groups, the group you saw, the group I saw, was
Mhm.
eye contact.
Mm-hmm.
So not only do the lowland ones, they like eye contact.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yes. And so if you ask me the color of the gorilla, I would say we had light brown eyes. But you may not, you could tell the eye color here, but the eyes are more human, these lowland gorillas. And they, not only that I have the experience that I was looking at the gorilla, I was looking at other people in the group told me, that gorilla was really staring at you.
Oh, hey.
Anyway, this has been a great talk.
Thank you very much. Did you find the lowland gorillas society much different from the mountain gorillas?
Briefly, the big difference was we had, you mentioned only a small number of gorillas, so basically we saw one silverback.
Oh, uh-huh.
We
Uh-huh.
missed all the family situations. Two, we had to hike for 7 hours continuously.
Oh.
And then I fell a few places, and what's happened is, if you're behind people with machetes, they're creating spears. Every place they cut a 45-degree spear. So if you just stumble and fall, you start bleeding.
Mm.
Walking and bleeding.
You're a trooper with all this. Oh, no.
But I got good medical treatment at night.
Good, good.
And so the doctor, the nurse, and the drugs, everything was $27.
Oh, boy. Yeah, the Congo. That must have been very interesting. I don't know that many people have been there in recent years.
Because it's not their main claim to fame.
Hmm.
They haven't developed that.
In general, I mean, I don't hear people just going there for a vacation, so to speak.
One thing you show in your pictures, but you didn't discuss,
Uh-huh.
the incredible birth rate in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
The Democratic Republic of the Congo has 105 million people.
Oh, my.
The highest is like 4% growth rate. So it's
Virginia, talk about, you mentioned before about the guards sleeping with the gorillas.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't mention that today.
Oh, I did mention the guards often sleep out with them, but they're in their own area, but they're there just to try to be aware if there are poachers coming and that type of thing. And they've been successful in really cutting back on the poachers, which is one of the reasons that the population is increasing. Yes.
Were you bothered by
No, that was a surprise, and we were there in their springtime, which was the end of January and early February. It was a lovely time to be there, and maybe I used a little mosquito spray to start out, but it really wasn't very noticeable, even though we were in all that foliage, and no mosquitoes at that time. I mean, were that evident. I Pardon? I'm not really sure. Oh, and the mosquitoes don't like height. They don't like altitude, maybe. Yeah, that could be. I don't know why, but that's true. But of course, like every other uh, developing country, you need a certain amount of shots and that type of thing to go. Uh-huh.
Last June in the Congo, I brought all sorts of bug sprays. And, got new yellow fever shots and the whole.
Yeah, yeah.
Not one mosquito did I see.
In the Congo, huh?
We were just stunned. Nobody saw. We were all prepared and surprised.
So it's, I guess, just seasonal. It must be after a lot of rain at the right altitude, I suppose.
I don't know.
I
They
don't-
had plenty of rain.
Maybe they're eradicating them somehow. Right, right. Yes? Yes, the wellies. Uh-huh. The rubber boots, and everybody wore them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They went over the shoes, so we had our shoes on, which were comfortable, and then as we started out, some of the guides fitted us to comfortable ones, and I don't think anyone had a problem. But it was muddy and a little slippery, and the bottom of them were a little bit non-slip, so that was good too. Any other last question? Uh-huh. Okay, yes. Charles?
I was just wondering about, if you had a chance to actually go by and go in the famous Hotel Wanda.
We drove by it. Yes, and the movie Hotel Rwanda, I remember that so much. That was very, very frightening. We,
Very interesting encounter. I was flying between Addis Ababa and Czech,
yeah,
and there was this gentleman who I was next to, and we started a conversation.
uh-huh.
And I asked him where he was from. He said he was from Rwanda. I said, "Oh, were you there during the Troubles?"
Hmm.
And it turns out he was the only medical doctor in Hotel Wanda.
Oh my gosh.
Time.
Oh
And
boy.
So he was telling me of not knowing where his wife or his family was.
Uh-huh.
It's just really, really amazing. And that is actually what travel is all about. Is to hear about things. If you travel, you have an immediate connection with them.
Yes.
When I hear about things going on in say Syria,
Hmm.
been to places that you hear stories about,
Hmm.
it makes you a part of that story.
Hmm.
And
Hmm. Was Charles, were you introduced here? Were you introduced here?
I'm Charles Murdoch. I am the coordinator of the Travelogues Club both in St. Louis and here in Chicago.
Hmm. He's quite a traveler.
And so we will hopefully have more of these joint meetings. And it's just always wonderful meeting.
Yes, we were all in Malta. That was an amazing place. Very interesting. Someone had his hand up. Is that maybe our last question? Yeah, okay. Yes.
And that's about all genocide.
Mm-hmm.
And I met lots of people, including survivors of it, from Rwanda.
Mm.
So I remember we did a small dinner party with 10 of us, talking to a couple of other people who were there.
Oh.
And it was actually frightening when you talk about when all this were married to each other.
A Hutu and a Tutsi. Yeah.
They had a hard time to grasp there's no difference. Because it's so, but you are your father or grandfather, so you be 160 something,
Mm-hmm.
and that's who you are. And then when we were talking about it, we talked about frightening thing, and as all this was unfolding, and the chaos and the carnage, her dad was a medical doctor there.
Mm-hmm.
And I always remember she said that her dad, because they would say, well, we gotta get out of here, we gotta get out of here, car and go. And her dad said, why don't you stay here and die with us?
Boy.
And her parents did die, but she says, everybody gets out. And then among the questions we asked is, what did you bring with you? You know, you have 5 minutes, what do you bring? Well, we jewelry, money, vaccination card, you know, any medical documents, and then sheets. I said, sheets. And we're going to be, you know, in some refugee camp. I want to be sleeping on my own sheets.
No.
And this was so if you ever get in a situation, you go to your refugees, grab your sheets.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. And we really are so lucky here. We don't always appreciate it despite the problems of what some people have had to live through. Just, the terror and the way they've been treated in many places.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. That was wonderful. So please go on another trip and bring us back some pictures, okay? So anyway, I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. So please watch your email inbox for invitations to upcoming events. And also, if you want to stick around, do you have more time to answer more questions if people want to hang out? Okay, so feel free to chat further, but I know some people have to leave. So thank you again for coming. Thank you, Virginia.